What's going on, JP Football Fanatics fans? It's your boy JP here, back with you once again with another video here for all of you today. If you tuned into last night's video, I talked about all the teams that I thought were going to be very underrated this year in the NFL. Tonight, we're going to be looking over the overrated teams. So there are quite a few teams that I do have in mind, but there's five in particular that a lot of people seem to really be overhyping in some ways, and maybe there are a couple of teams too, where they could be good, but they're also, like I said, being overhyped by a couple of different, a couple of different podcasters, a couple of different critics, and other social media platforms and everything like that. So there is a lot to really talk about for tonight as far as the most overrated teams are. And we're going to talk about some of my most overrated teams within the NFL for this season. If you haven't done so already, before we do get started, please be sure to drop a like on this video. If you have not done so already, drop a like on this video and leave a comment down below to let me know what you think about the content that I have provided here on JP Football Fanatics. So do that. And also, if you could too, please be sure to also hit that subscribe button, which is also down below this video as well. So that way you can be notified on every single time when I post content for pre-recorded podcasts or when I go live and everything like that. So that way you guys will be the first ones to be notified and be able to tune in to when I cover the off-season stuff, and when the regular season does begin, you guys will be the first ones to be notified about it, and you will be the first ones to really know about, and tune in as far as like engaging in conversation. So like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, help JP Football Fanatics out to be bigger and better than what it is already. So thank you to everybody that's tuning in. It really does mean a lot too. I really do enjoy when there's more people that are on these podcasts and everything like that. So that way, at times I could also have people that are here in the live chat and be able to chat with them a little bit too. So that way they can tune in and be able to be familiarize themselves with everything that goes on. So I really do enjoy doing this, and I want to continue doing this for as long as I possibly can. So without further ado, we do have one person that is on here right now. So for that one person that is on there, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. And please tell your friends and family to tune into right now and to GP Football Fanatics for the most overrated teams in 2023. So without further ado, we will begin with the very first team for tonight to talk about for the most overrated team. And you guys have probably guessed it. You've probably seen a lot of it during the offseason. You've heard about this team who traded their number one pick during the offseason to acquire a wide receiver, DJ Moore, and that was the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears are, yes, I do think they're a team of the future. I think they're going to get themselves better this year. I think they'll be about a 6 to 7 win team, maybe even 8 wins with Justin Fields. However, they are being overhyped right now. DJ Moore, love the acquisition of him. I think that trade was excellent, but it's not enough to help this team get to the playoffs, okay? Coaching, I think they're solid. I think they're a little bit underrated in terms of that aspect, but I don't think their talent is nearly as much there as some people want to make it seem like. Like Justin Fields, as much as I like Justin Fields and I liked him coming out of the draft, we'll see how he does in year 3, but his passing ability to be able to get rid of the football in a decent amount of time and being a pocket passer is very low, in my honest opinion. I don't think he's quite there yet as a passer. I don't think he has the tools or the mechanics to be a good passer as of yet. Maybe he will be at the end of the season, maybe, because he now has some more help in the wide receiver realm, but he also doesn't have much of an offensive line. So the offseason for the Bears was, decent enough. They picked up some players that will add some depth in the secondary and skilled players kind of ordeal, but they didn't fix the problems exactly what they should have been focusing on. And the biggest one was offensive line. Defensively, they're not anywhere as good as they used to be. They lost a lot of players during last season when they traded a lot of their players away on defense, like Roquan Smith. They traded away Robert Quinn as well. The only defensive player, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have Eddie Jackson still, and that's pretty much really it. Everybody else is like fairly new, very young, or just not very good. Let's just be honest there. But The Bears will have a decent year. I think they'll be a decent enough team, but they're not a great team. Like, they're not a team that I think is underrated. I don't think they're a team that's going to be like scaring anybody this year. If anything, I think the only thing that's going to really scare them is Justin Fields and his running ability. But as far as the passing game goes, if if Fields does not improve in that aspect, they won't get anywhere to where their expectations are. So I think they're just a little bit overhyped right now. I think a lot of teams and a lot of critics and a lot of media people want to overhype them, and they want to make them seem like, like Justin Fields is a top 10 quarterback. They want to make it seem like that he's going to be improved, like we've seen in Jalen Hurts, what we've seen in Josh Allen, and so on. But I just don't see that happening just yet. Like, I think he'll have an improved season statistically and recordly, but I don't see them quite living up to like being a playoff team, or not even like a dark horse. I wouldn't even consider them a dark horse. So I'd like to see how they do this year. I want to see them do well, but I don't think they're necessarily just there just yet. So they have a little bit more things that they need to improve on before they can talk about that next step. Next, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I know every year everybody wants to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I get that. And I've been honestly given a lot of positive feedback on the Cowboys. I've been talking pretty positively about the Cowboys during the offseason, and they've done a lot of really, really nice things. Their defense is going to be very, very well rounded. They're going to be at least a top 5 defense this year, maybe even top 3. But I think their offense is just a little bit overrated. Not so much with offensive line, not so much with the receivers, but more so Dak Prescott. Is Dak Prescott going to take this team to that next level? Is Dak Prescott the Super Bowl winning quarterback? That's like the biggest question in the offseason that I think many Cowboys fans, the organization, the coaching staff, players need to really consider here. Is Dak Prescott the guy that's going to take you to a Super Bowl, and is he going to win it? That's going to be the biggest factor of this whole offseason. So I think that's really the biggest reason why they're overrated, is because of Dak Prescott. I like Dak. I've always liked him. He's always been a very nice guy. I've always liked his, always appreciated and admired the way that he plays football, but he's not quite to the standards of what we've seen like consistently within the last couple of years. If you remember that 2020 season, Dak got hurt, and then Andy Dalton took over for the majority of the rest of the season. And then the year after, once he came back from that injury, it didn't look quite the same. And last year was an up and down roller coaster for him. I think we're going to see a similar way of Dak Prescott going into next year, or this season rather, at least. I think we're going to see a similar trend where we're going to see him play a lot of games that are like up and down, up and down. A lot of games, like we might see him throw some interceptions. We might see him be like the most accurate and the best passer in the game. But I don't know if he's really, I think at this point now with him being in, I think this is like what, year 7 for him or year 8 for him, something like that. I think that this is definitely the year that I think Dak will definitely be on the hot seat. And if they don't get anywhere, if they don't get past the divisional round of the playoffs, if they don't go deep in the playoffs, they don't go to the Super Bowl, this could be a team that is looking to move on from Dak Prescott. Like they have already moved on from Zeke Elliott, which was a shocker of the offseason, which I never thought was going to happen, let's be honest there, but it happened. And that's also another thing I want to talk about too, is the Cowboys. Like, I like Tony Pollard. Don't love him, but I like Tony Pollard and I admire him for what he can do. But is he going to be ready to take on the full load? That's like the biggest question here. Like, this is a team that could be in that potential discussion where they could get another player in acquisition of Dalvin Cook. Like, he can split time with Cook and Tony Pollard. Like, they can split time with each other. Like, if I were Jerry Jones right now, I definitely would give Cook a call immediately and ask him and negotiate a deal with him to play for the Cowboys, because I think that that's also a big factor there too. Like, Tony Pollard can do some things, but he's coming off of an injury. He's also coming off of a history of some up and down season last year. It was a consistent season. I think he was more consistent than Zeke was. But I don't know if Tony Pollard is that kind of person. I don't think he's that player that can really take on to the next level. I don't think he could be like a full-time carry the full load. Like I don't think he's a Derrick Henry or an Austin Eckler or a Christian McCaffrey. I don't think he's that kind of player. Maybe top 15 running back in the league, but not someone that I would want to give the full load to. So this is where I would consider Cook being a part of this offense and being acclimated into the passing game as well. Because if Pollard is not ready to go by week one, Cook could be the guy that could be the next person that really stands up. And Cook does have a history of being injured and everything like that, but he's a very reliable player when he is on the field, and he can get you yardage and get the ground game going when he really needs to be. So if I were the Cowboys, I would take Cook. I would look at Dak Prescott and saying like he right now he is on the hot seat. This may be his last season with the Cowboys if nothing comes through with it. And then you got to look at the wide receivers too. Like I think they have one of the best wide receiving core in the league right now. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Michael Gallup, and you have Brandon Cooks. I think that really says it all pretty much. So I think they're going to be fine in that in the passing game, like with receivers, but the passer himself in Dak Prescott and the consistent ground game is going to be like the biggest questions of how this is going to go. And really overall coaching as well. Mike McCarthy, like I know I've have given Mike McCarthy some credit in some ways. Like he has called some good games in years past with the Cowboys, but he's not the kind of person that I feel like this isn't Aaron Rodgers, this isn't the Green Bay Packers, this is the Dallas Cowboys that haven't won a Super Bowl in over 20 years. Okay. So that really does say a lot there. And he's got Dak to work with. So he also very well be in the hot seat as well with Dak. So that's how I feel about the Cowboys. I think they'll have a good year. I think they're a solid enough team that can definitely get a lot of wins. But is it going to matter? It's really going to matter most when it comes to the playoffs. The next team, the overrated team. A lot of people, surprisingly, have really come at me this year about the Denver Broncos. So I'm going to explain why they're overrated, okay? Number one, okay, you got rid of Nathaniel Hackett. You got Sean Payton. That is great. That is fine. That's a huge upgrade there. But you didn't do anything to really update your roster. You still have all the same receivers. You have pretty much the same exact team as what you got last year. And why did you, when you ask that? Well, you don't have a lot of draft picks. That's for one, because you traded them all when you got Russell Wilson in that trade in 2022. And you don't have a lot of cap space. That's another big factor there too. And you're paying Russell Wilson all that money. You're paying Russell Wilson for, 4 years, I think, a 4-year contract for like, I don't know exactly how much, like $230 million or something like that. So you're right now with what some people were saying, is, and I probably would agree right now, is probably the worst negotiation or the worst deal in NFL history right now. Russell Wilson didn't play very well last year. Maybe that didn't help exactly with Hackett calling the plays, but still, even watching him play, you could just tell that there wasn't a lot of glimpse last year of the old Russell Wilson. Every once in a great while, you would see him kind of revert back to his old self and be able to, make some plays scrambling around outside of the pocket and make plays on his feet, but not very often last year. And I think a lot of that was because, well, there's no Pete Carroll. You don't have Pete Carroll. You don't have all the wide receivers that you've had. You don't have DK Metcalf. You don't have Tyler Lockett. And then you don't have the backfield either with any of your running backs. Like you don't have a Marshawn Lynch anymore. You don't have any of those players. So you've been surrounded around with a lot of talent for pretty much your entire career. Okay? You go to Denver, and then you're looking at wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton. Is there anybody else? Greg Dulcich. And then that's pretty much it. Tim Patrick, who didn't even play last year. Those players are very overrated. Maybe your best wide receiver, really, maybe Jerry Jeudy on this team. Maybe I would consider him more of your wide receiver one on this team, but that's not really celebrating. That's not really saying a whole lot there, too, because I do believe Jerry Jeudy is overrated. I don't think he's a bad player. I like him. I don't love him, but I like him enough and can be productive. Maybe this could be the year where he does step up in Sean Payton's offense. But still, I don't think he's necessarily anywhere near the talent as what when they drafted him in 2020. Like he's no Justin Jefferson, he's no Jamar Chase, he's not really anything, honestly. He's not anything spectacular like that. Like he's another wide receiver that's going to play in the deep, like he can play in the deep ball. He's a pretty good route runner, but that's really it. And KJ Hamler, I mean, the guy has flashes, but mostly he's mostly used when he's in a deep threat. And so he can get himself wide open right there. Cortland Sutton, I don't really know. He's not really my favorite player. I don't know why Russell Wilson really loves to target him, but for whatever reason, that's like his favorite target. And that shouldn't be. It should be Jerry Jeudy, honestly. So this team has a lot of dysfunction. There's still a team that's going to figure themselves out in the future. Um, the run game is very, very much in question. So they got quite a few backs in this offense. You have Javonte Williams, who's going to be coming off of an ACL injury from last year. We'll see if he will start in week 1. You got Samaje Perine from Cincinnati, which will be good. Offensive line is better, but not great, but better. And you still have pretty much the same team as what you did last year. So maybe coaching kind of brings them up. I think the team will be better. I think they should be better with Peyton at the helm, but you're still not that great of a team. Like I still think you're a pretty beatable team. Let's be honest. The Chiefs will still beat you. The Chargers will still find ways to beat you. And even the Raiders. I feel like the Raiders also could beat you at least once this year too. So I think you can I guess you can make like that legitimate argument that you could split with every team in your division. But the one team that I feel like that you would probably get swept by the most is probably going to be the Chiefs. Because Patrick Mahomes, let's face it right now, maybe a little bit early to say it in his young career, but Mahomes owns you guys, okay? That's just being honest with you right there. So there are some things to like about them, but they're also very overhyped, overrated. I feel like they're not the team that's ready to win it all just yet. So if they got themselves legitimate receivers, if they got themselves a ground game, a consistent ground game going, this team could be a lot better. Their defense is great. I think their defense is going to be at least top 15 this year, maybe even top 10. They could break the top 10. Like, I think their defense is great. Just that offense that needs to get themselves going, and they were the worst offense in the NFL last year. I don't think they're definitely going to be dead last or anything like that this year. I think they're going to slightly improve on that, but they're not a team that I feel like really scares you. Honestly, if I'm being honest with you, this is probably a hot take, but I think the Raiders' offense is much more scarier than Russell Wilson's offense with the Broncos. Just kind of being blunt and honest there. So, some things to like about, some things to really dislike about overall. Therefore, that's why I think they're overrated. So I don't really need to go too much more detail on that one. Next, you got the Miami Dolphins. A lot of Dolphins fans, a lot of people are going to really, really bash me on this one too. Now, I understand you have the 2 fastest wide receivers in the league. That is 100% true. And if I were a Dolphins fan, I definitely would be praising for how much offensive weapons I have on my team. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's definitely something to really brag about. However, you still didn't fix your offensive line. Your offensive line is still trash. You don't have a legitimate backup for Tua if he gets hurt. That's really the biggest thing here. Tua, when healthy, is fine. Like last year, that huge ordeal with him getting Tyreek Hill and having Jalen Waddle as well really helped separate the offense last year. That is 100% true. That is why Tua improved enormously last year. You take away 2 of those wide receivers, and then what do you have at that point? You revert back to Tua year 1. Year 2, you got Jalen Waddle as a rookie. You did okay there. You have Tyreek Hill. Now you have more weapons to choose from. Okay? You have a run game that is still very inconsistent, but better, slightly better in year 3. But now you're going into year 4, and you have all these high expectations of this team being very, very dangerous in the AFC East and possibly the playoffs. I, for one, don't see that. I understand who you got in the offseason. I understand you got Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be something really crazy to really see with Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard on the same field, on the same team, making plays left and right. So I think in that sense, I think their pass rush and their secondary has definitely improved, and they should be better. However, the biggest thing here is if Tua can stay healthy. That is the biggest factor that's going to play in this entire year for the Dolphins. Is Tua going to stay healthy? I have a lot of concerns for Tua. I don't know if he can stay healthy. I don't think anybody really does. Let's just be honest there. Last year, after his 3 concussion protocols, he was called in for concussion protocol 3 times and missed the last end of the season there. Started out the season, they were 3-0, went 3-3, went 8-3. Then they went 8-8, and they won their last game in week 18, and then they lost in the wild card. So I have a lot of questions about the quarterback position, and this could have been the year where if I were the Dolphins right now, Teddy Bridgewater is a free agent. He's available right now. I would probably sign a solid enough who has been in the league for quite some time and has won a lot of games. I would consider signing a quarterback to back up Tua. Skylar Thompson, not the answer for this team whatsoever. Teddy Bridgewater didn't do much last year when he did play, but he knows the system. He understands how the game is played. Would sign him. Carson Wentz is also available. Would be my last resort, but he's available, and he can win you some games. He can upset some teams if needed, and he also has a lot of weapons to work around in. So that will be a big factor there too. And as far as any other quarterbacks that are available, not really that many right now that I can think of. I don't even know if I would even sign like a Matt Ryan, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would sign Matt Ryan because I feel like Matt Ryan at this age now, working with CBS now, he already said it's not a retirement for him, but we can just safely say, yeah, he's retiring at this point. So he probably wouldn't be a reliable choice. But I would bring back Teddy Bridgewater. I would definitely bring him back as a solid backup for Tua. And that's really all that it really does come down to is quarterback. Mike McDaniel had proved from last year that he can coach in this league. I had a lot of questions about him last year. I didn't know how he was going to do as an offensive coach. But he did fine. He worked with what he had. He understood the players that he had, and he knew how to work around Tua's skills. That's something that Brian Flores, unfortunately, was not able to do. Probably one of their better coaches during the Miami Dolphins, franchise, in recent years at least. So, but Mike McDaniel has proven that he can coach in this league. He can be a head coach, and he can win you games. So, the Dolphins could go either way. They could definitely be very, very, very good, or they could be stumbling in the middle there. They could be mediocre to below average. It can go either way. But regardless, still overrated in my book. Don't need to go into more detail about that. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, but I just don't see them competing. Like, they could upset some teams, but I just don't see them really being like a dark horse or anything like that for this season. Just being flat out honest with you. Next, you got the Minnesota Vikings. I think a lot of people can definitely agree with me on this too. I liked the Vikings last year, and I really praised them, but they are overrated. I'm just being honest with you there as well too, and I'm sorry if you're a Vikings fan, but the Vikings, in my opinion, are very overrated as well. Their offense is excellent. There's no flaws in their offense. Kirk Cousins, man, very consistent every single year. He always seems to get the disrespect from like media people and all over the NFL, which I don't know why. I never understood why Kirk Cousins always gets the disrespect that he gets. They have Justin Jefferson. Love Justin Jefferson. They don't have Dalvin Cook anymore, but that's okay. They have Alexander Madison. We'll see how he does carrying the full load. You have Jordan Addison that you acquired in the first round, which was good. I'm not going to debunk them on that. I think that was a good pick. An awesome pick. That helps out your offense a lot. However, you need a defense. Za'Darius Smith you got, and that will work, but you need other players. You don't have Patrick Peterson there anymore at corner, so you need more help on defense. So I would have, if I were the Vikings, I would have gone after a defensive player in the first round. But I'm not going to debunk him too much on that. I'm not going to, because I think Jordan Addison was a good pick for them, and I think he will be very productive in Kevin O'Connell's offense. I really do. So you don't have Adam Thielen anymore. Hurts a little bit, but he's older now, and he's with Carolina. So I think Adam Thielen is going to one team to another. He'll help out the rookie Bryce Young, and all will be good there. Defensively, like I said, you don't have a lot of players on defense that I necessarily trust. Brian Flores, who is the defensive coordinator here, could potentially change that. He changed that when he became the head coach for the Dolphins for the 2 years that he was there, 2 or 3 years that he was there, and he changed around their defense, who basically had no talent whatsoever, to a defense that became statistically in coverages and covering passes and pass rush and everything like that. They instantly became at least the top three for like those 2 years prior before McDaniel came in. So I'm not saying their defense is anywhere near as much talented as the Dolphins were, but I think Brian Flores, I think a competent defensive coordinator after last year's disastrous last half of the season with your defense giving up so much yardage and giving up like so much broken coverages and wide open players and everything like that, especially to the Giants, who didn't have any weapons to throw to whatsoever, and it was Daniel Jones throwing to the flat the entire time. Like, that's pretty embarrassing. And for a team that was 13-4 or 12-5 last year, whatever their record was last year, that's pretty bad. That's really bad if your defense is that terrible. And for you to win those many close games like you did last year. Like last year, they were 11-0 in one-score games, which was absolutely crazy to even think about. And then the other games that they lost to weren't even close games at all. So they are overrated in that aspect. I think their offense is definitely what keeps this team alive. They keep them afloat. They keep them relevant. But their defense is pretty bad. So I consider them very overrated. I don't even see them winning the NFC North this year. I think Detroit is going to take that one this year. Just being honest there. So that's my opinion on the Vikings. And then I added in one more other team too. I talked about them last night as my underrated, and I think they are underrated. But I just kind of want to talk about why I also think they're overrated too, and that's the Jets. Like, I really, really, really want to see the Jets actually do something this year with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. I really do. As a New Jersey resident, as someone who's followed the Jets and the Giants for many, many, many years, I want to see the Jets actually do something. But let's be honest, though, they're overhyped like the Broncos. They're overhyped like the Bears and all those other teams, too, who have acquired a lot of different players. And like everyone's thinking like these are like game changers and everything like that. Like the Jets do have a lot of talent. Like I am not denying that whatsoever. Their defense is a top 5. Their receivers are very good. They're very young and inexperienced and immature, but they're very good players. However, their biggest question was at quarterback. So they got the quarterback in Aaron Rodgers in the offseason. So they got him. They traded it for a first round pick with Green Bay, and they only moved up like 2 spots. And then they waste their first round pick, which was a good pick. Like I am not, definitely debunking them on that. But they got Will McDonald. They got him as the edge rusher for the Jets. Like, I don't think that was a bad pick whatsoever. He could be something very productive in their young, very young, inexperienced, and immature defense. I think it will be very good there. However, you need an offensive line. That's also a big factor here that many teams and owners and fans don't understand, that a quarterback cannot do its job unless they have an offensive line that can protect you. If you have no offensive line, you are not getting anywhere. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if you're Tom Brady, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning. Like, I don't care. If you don't have the offensive line, you're not going to do anything. And with Rodgers being older now, being at age 39, he probably has 2 more good years left in him. And then that's going to be basically it for him. So he's at least going to give himself at least 2 years with the Jets to win a Super Bowl. And if he does not win it in those 2 years, you'll understand why. It's the organization that he does play in. Now, so I want to see the Jets win. I want to see them do really well. And I really, really am going to be rooting for them this year because they're a huge underdog in the AFC. And a lot of people are sleeping on them. So I definitely would not sleep on the Jets. But I also have to put them in the overrated because they're being overhyped as thinking that Aaron Rodgers will be the savior for this team. Very well could be the case, but could also fall flat on their face and be like last year's Broncos team. Very well could happen. So that's why I put them in the overrated here. And with all that being said, everybody, that's basically it really for my most overrated teams. If you have any questions or if you want to agree or disagree with me, just leave a comment down below, guys, because I'm always here to really talk some football with you guys. And I really want to be able to, pick your brains and be able to understand like where you guys are coming from. And I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from for some of these things. So, leave some comments down below. I really want to hear what you guys think about my overrated teams. Are there teams that I left out in this video? Let me know down below. It's your boy James, JP Football Fanatics, saying thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.